Put the formula back. Noah Bennett said it quietly, but the words stopped the checkout line. The cashier looked at him over the register. Sir? The formula, he repeated. Take it off. Outside, freezing rain scratched against the supermarket windows. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed over crowded carts, wet boots, and tired faces pretending not to listen. Noah kept one hand on the worn infant carrier beside him. His 8-month-old daughter, Sophie, slept beneath a faded pink blanket. Her cheeks were flushed. Every few breaths, a faint wheeze slipped from her chest. The cashier tapped the screen. Your card was declined again. I heard you. You already took off the cupcake. I know. And the diapers. I know that too. A man behind Noah sighed. Someone near the magazine rack muttered that the line had not moved in 10 minutes. Noah looked at what remained on the conveyor belt. Infant fever reducer, electrolyte solution, and a can of formula. He had $23.14 in his checking account. The medicine cost $19. Dignity rarely looks heroic when it arrives. Sometimes it looks like a tired father beneath cold lights, deciding which need his child can survive without. Noah lifted the formula and placed it carefully in the return basket. The cashier frowned. What kind of father returns his baby's food? The question landed harder than she understood. Noah's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed level. The kind trying to keep her fever down until morning. The line fell silent. Not compassionate silence. The uneasy kind people offer after cruelty has gone too far and no one wants to admit they helped make room for it. At the end of the line stood Claire Whitmore. She wore a charcoal wool coat damp from the storm, her blonde hair pinned loosely at the back of her neck. She had just left a tense board meeting and stopped at the supermarket for a quiet, anonymous check of her company's retail displays. No one in the store recognized the woman who controlled Whitmore Family Nutrition. No one knew the formula Noah had returned carried her family's name. Claire watched Noah bend toward the carrier. Hey, sweetheart, he whispered. Daddy's right here. Sophie stirred. Noah adjusted the blanket around her with hands rough from warehouse work, careful as prayer. Claire had known wealthy men who donated hospital wings and made sure photographers were waiting. She had known executives who spoke about responsibility only when microphones were turned on. But she had never seen a man lose almost everything and still protect his child from the shame of it. She stepped forward. I'll cover the formula. Noah turned. Their eyes met for the first time, and neither of them understood that the small white can between them was connected to a buried report, a dead scientist, and a decision that would eventually cost Claire billions. No. Noah's answer came so quickly that Claire almost thought she had misheard him. I said I'll pay for it, she replied. And I said no. The cashier looked from one of them to the other, unsure whether to reskin the formula or call a supervisor. Behind them, carts shifted. A toddler cried near the candy display. The storm rattled the automatic doors every time someone entered. Claire studied Noah's face. There was no anger in it. No performance. Just exhaustion wrapped around something stubborn and wounded. It's $32, she said. You don't owe me anything. That's the problem. Noah reached for the medicine. Claire lowered her voice. Your daughter needs both. His eyes moved toward Sophie. For 1 second, the strength left his face. Then it returned. I'll figure something out. Tonight? He looked at her then. Not offended. Exposed. Claire knew that look. She had seen it in mirrors after funerals, hostile board votes, and dinners served at one end of a table built for 12. She placed the formula beside the medicine. This isn't charity. Noah gave a tired smile, without humor. That's what people call it when they want you to feel better about accepting it. Then call it repayment. For what? For reminding everyone here what dignity looks like. The cashier lowered her eyes. 3 breaths passed. Then Sophie coughed. It was thin and rough, too small a sound to carry that much fear. Noah's hand moved instantly to the carrier. Claire inserted her card. This time, he did not stop her. Outside, the parking lot had become a gray blur of sleet, headlights, and shopping carts rolling in the wind. Noah tucked the formula beneath his coat, but the medicine slipped from the grocery bag when he hurried toward his aging Ford pickup. He did not notice. Claire did. She bent to pick it up. Before she could call to him, tires screamed across the lot. A dark SUV had lost traction near the cart return. It slid sideways toward a woman and a little boy frozen beside their car. Move, someone shouted. Noah was already running. He crossed the ice, reached the child, and pulled him behind a concrete barrier as the SUV slammed into a row of carts. Metal crashed. Glass shattered. For one terrible second, the whole lot went silent. Noah rose slowly, shielding the boy with his body. His elbow was bleeding, but the child was alive. Police and paramedics arrived within minutes. One officer examined Noah's dead truck and arranged for a tow through the department's storm response program. Another officer offered Noah and Sophie a ride home. Noah hesitated, then accepted. As he climbed into the patrol car, a folded hospital billing envelope slipped from his coat pocket. Claire picked it up beside the forgotten medicine. The address was printed clearly on the front. She called the phone number beneath Noah's name. No answer. Claire looked toward the departing patrol car, then at the infant fever reducer in her hand. For the first time in years, she followed someone not because she wanted anything from him, but because she was afraid his child might not have enough time. Sophie, stay with me. Noah's voice broke on the last word. Claire had reached the apartment only moments earlier. She had called twice from the lobby, but no one answered. The building manager recognized Noah's name from the envelope and buzzed her inside after she explained that she was returning medicine for a sick infant. She found Noah in the second-floor hallway, kneeling beside Sophie's carrier. The baby had gone frighteningly still. Her breathing had turned into a harsh, shallow wheeze, each gasp separated by too much silence. Noah, look at me. He did. Claire had seen panic in boardrooms, on trading floors, and in men. Watching fortunes disappear. This was different. This was fear without ego. Fear stripped down to love. She was coughing, he said. Then she got quiet. Claire pulled out her phone and called 911. The dispatcher asked questions quickly. Was Sophie breathing? Yes, but barely. Was she responsive? Only slightly. The nearest ambulance was delayed by a multi-car crash caused by the storm. Keep her upright, the dispatcher instructed. Watch her color. If she stops breathing completely, I'll walk you through infant CPR. Claire unlocked her sedan from the window. The hospital is 6 minutes away, she told the dispatcher. Can we transport her? After confirming the route and Sophie's condition, the dispatcher told them to proceed while staying on the line. 3 words. 1 decision. No time left for pride. Noah carried Sophie down the stairs while Claire held the phone near him. The hallway smelled of old paint, radiator dust, and burned coffee. Somewhere behind a thin wall, a television audience laughed at something that was not funny. Outside, freezing rain swept across the street. Claire drove. Windshield wipers slapped against the glass. Tires fought for traction. Red taillights smeared across the windshield like warning flares. In the back seat, Noah held Sophie upright against his chest. Talk to her, the dispatcher said through the speaker. I am. Use something familiar. Your voice can help keep her responsive. Noah closed his eyes. Then he began to hum. The melody was simple and slow, the kind of song meant for dark rooms and frightened children. Sophie gave a weak cry. That's it, Noah whispered. Daddy's here. Claire's hands tightened around the steering wheel. She knew that melody. Not something similar. That exact melody. Her younger sister Caroline had written it 12 years earlier during a hospital music therapy program for expectant mothers. Caroline had recorded several copies for other women on the maternity floor before a surgical complication took her life. Claire had not heard the song since the funeral. Where did you learn that? She asked. My wife, Noah said, still humming. Rachel volunteered at St. Catherine's before Sophie was born. Claire's breath caught. At the emergency entrance, nurses took Sophie immediately. Noah followed until the swinging doors stopped him. He reached for his insurance card, and an old employee badge slipped from his wallet. Rachel Bennett, Senior Quality Control Chemist. Whitmore Family Nutrition. Claire stared at the photograph. The woman who had carried Caroline's song into Noah's home had once worked for Claire's company. And suddenly the meeting in the supermarket no longer felt random. It felt like something buried had finally found its way back to the surface. Your wife's insurance ended the same week she began chemotherapy. The hospital financial counselor spoke carefully. Noah turned from the pediatric unit window. Claire stood near the door, holding Rachel's faded employee badge. What are you saying? Noah asked. The counselor rotated the monitor slightly. The hospital record shows that her employer-sponsored coverage was terminated 9 years ago. I don't have access to the company's internal reason. I only have the coverage date and the denial codes. Noah stared at the screen. She told me it was paperwork. She may not have wanted you to worry. Beyond the glass, Sophie slept beneath a warmed blanket. Her breathing had stabilized after oxygen, fluids, and medication. The pediatrician believed a respiratory infection was the most likely cause, but had ordered tests because of Sophie's history as a premature infant. No one had blamed the formula. Not yet. Claire looked down at Rachel's badge. I can access her employment file, she said. Noah's eyes hardened. Convenient. I'm not asking you to trust me. Good. Claire stepped into the hall and called Whitmore Family Nutrition's general counsel. She demanded the complete personnel record, product safety reports, archived email logs, and all documents connected to Rachel Bennett. 20 minutes later, encrypted files arrived on her secure tablet. The first page listed Rachel's termination. Cause: falsification of safety data. Noah read the line twice. That's a lie. Claire opened the attached disciplinary summary. Rachel had reported respiratory complications in laboratory testing connected to a cost reduction additive used in one infant formula line. The report was marked inconclusive, then removed from formal review. A final note stated that Rachel had created unnecessary alarm and violated internal communication policy. Claire's face changed. Noah saw it. What? She turned the tablet toward him. Rachel's last complaint had been filed 9 years earlier, during the months Claire had been in Boston with Caroline. Claire had left daily operations to the executive committee and received only sanitized weekly summaries. They never sent this to me, Claire said. Noah gave a bitter laugh. That's what powerful people say when the truth reaches their door. Claire accepted the blow. Power often teaches people to answer pain with explanations. But explanation offered too early is only another way of refusing to listen. A pediatrician entered. We found no evidence that the formula caused Sophie's episode, she said. The infection is the immediate concern. But because she was premature and because of the report you mentioned, I recommend preserving the can and lot number for testing. Noah nodded. Claire photographed the product code from the receipt. Then she opened another file. Rachel's report referenced the same low-cost formula line Noah had purchased. Not the same production batch, but the same additive. Noah looked through the glass at Sophie. My wife knew. She raised a legitimate concern, Claire said. And they called her unstable. Yes. She lost her insurance because of it. Claire's voice lowered. Yes. Noah closed his eyes. The lullaby, Claire softly said. Caroline recorded it at St. Catherine's. Rachel must have been one of the volunteers who received a copy. Noah looked at her. For the first time, grief stood between them without choosing a side. Claire returned Rachel's badge. Your wife tried to tell the truth, she said. Someone made sure I never heard her. Noah closed his fingers around the badge. Then find out who. Claire met his eyes. I will. The company is prepared to discuss a confidential resolution. Arthur Cole said it with the measured tone of a lawyer who had spent years making dangerous sentences sound harmless. Noah sat across from him in a quiet hospital conference room. Claire remained beside the window. Rain moved down the glass in silver lines. A vending machine hummed in the hallway. Somewhere beyond the door, Sophie slept beneath the care of nurses who had finally given Noah permission to breathe. Arthur opened a folder. Whitmore Family Nutrition can cover the current medical expenses while the facts are reviewed. We can also provide temporary rent assistance. Noah did not touch the papers. And what do you want in return? No admission has been made. That wasn't my question. Arthur folded his hands. A confidential agreement would spare all parties a prolonged dispute. No. Mr. Bennett, I said no. Claire looked at Arthur. Leave us. He hesitated. Claire, the board now? When the door closed, silence returned. Noah pushed the folder toward her. This is what your company does, right? Put numbers around the damage and call it mercy? This was not supposed to include a release. But your lawyer brought one. Yes. The honesty surprised him. Claire sat across from Noah. I should have controlled that meeting better. You should have known what kind of meeting it was. You're right. Noah looked away. Powerful people often apologized in ways that protected their dignity. Claire's apology did not. She opened a second, thinner folder. This is different. A 60-day consulting agreement. No confidentiality clause. No settlement language. You would help identify Rachel's files, explain her notes, and document anything she told you before she died. You think I'm qualified? I think you knew her better than anyone alive. That doesn't make me a scientist. No, but it makes you a witness. Noah studied the agreement. The pay was fair, not extravagant. The role was temporary. The document stated that all safety findings could be disclosed to regulators. I also want access to Rachel's original work, Claire said. She kept copies. Where? In a storage locker. Notebooks, printouts, voice memos. She said numbers mattered because people could argue with feelings. Claire's breath caught. Caroline used to say almost the same thing. Noah noticed. What? Nothing. That's not true. Claire looked at him. My sister believed facts were a form of mercy. She said feelings could be dismissed, but records made people answer. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Noah closed the folder. I have conditions. Claire nodded. If children are still at risk, every relevant record goes to regulators. Agreed. No one pressures me to protect the company. Agreed. And if your board tries to bury this again, I walk straight to the press. Claire held his gaze. Then I'll walk beside you. Noah searched her face for calculation. He found fear instead. Not fear of losing money. Fear that the company bearing her family's name had harmed people while she looked somewhere else. He signed the consulting agreement. What happens if the company doesn't survive? He asked. Claire looked toward the pediatric wing. Then it doesn't survive. At that exact moment, inside Whitmore Family Nutrition, an automated alert notified Victor Hale that Rachel Bennett's archive personnel file had been reopened. He read Noah's name. Then he began deleting records. You should have taken the assistance and walked away quietly. Victor Hale spoke from the far end of the research floor. Noah stopped beneath the white laboratory lights. Claire stood beside him in a plain black coat. Before they entered the facility, she had warned him that Hale might provoke him. Federal investigators were already monitoring the building after receiving copies of Rachel's documents. But warnings cannot remove the sting of humiliation. They can only explain why someone is being asked to endure it. Hale approached slowly. He was in his late 50s, silver-haired, composed, and dressed like a man who had spent decades mistaking control for innocence. His eyes dropped to Noah's visitor badge. Noah Bennett. Recognition crossed his face. Then fear. What is he doing here? Hale demanded. He's a contracted witness in an internal safety review, Claire said. You had no authority to grant him access to this division. Claire held up the visitor authorization. It was approved by compliance. Hale barely looked at it. Security. 2 guards stepped through the glass doors. Around them, technicians stopped typing. Refrigeration systems hummed behind sealed walls. Stainless steel counters reflected the cold light. A place built to protect infants had become a stage for a man protecting himself. Hale pointed at Noah's canvas bag. That material belongs to the company. It belonged to my wife, Noah said. Anything produced during her employment is corporate property. One guard reached for the bag. Noah held it out himself. I'm not resisting. The guard removed Rachel's notebooks, lab printouts, an old flash drive sealed in a plastic evidence sleeve, and a photograph of Rachel holding newborn Sophie. Hale picked up the photograph. Emotional theater. Noah's voice lowered. Put her picture down. Hale dropped it onto the table. Then he lifted one of Rachel's reports. She manipulated data after being denied a promotion. That isn't in her original notes. It's in the official record. The record you controlled? Hale's jaw tightened. Claire said nothing. Not because Noah was unaware of the plan. Because Hale needed to believe he was still the strongest person in the room. One guard stepped between Noah and the table. Hale raised his voice for the employees watching. This man is exploiting his wife's death to manufacture a claim against the company. I refused your settlement, Noah said. People in your position always refuse the first offer. Claire's eyes hardened. Noah stayed calm. Rachel documented respiratory events in premature infants. She documented noise in an incomplete data set. Then why was her report removed before regulatory review? Hale hesitated. Only a fraction of a second. But everyone saw it. It was superseded. By what? Claire asked. A final internal assessment. Where is it? Hale looked at her. Claire stepped closer. Your email referred to multiple copies of Rachel's report. Why? His caution began to crack. Because duplicates were circulating. And what happened to them? They were removed under document retention policy. Before the final review? Hale's pride answered before judgment could stop it, using the sanitized corporate language he had hidden behind for years. Every duplicate was removed before regulatory review. It was standard protocol to prevent unnecessary panic. Silence fell. Claire opened her coat. The recording device, clipped to her blazer, continued blinking. Used under written guidance from investigators in a one-party consent state. Behind the glass doors, federal agents entered and presented a search warrant. No one arrested Hale immediately. They did something more frightening. They ordered him not to leave. You're speaking to the controlling shareholder. Claire's voice remained quiet. That made the words land harder. Victor Hale stared at her across the research floor. What did you say? Claire removed her black coat and placed her identification card on the stainless steel table. Claire Whitmore, Chairwoman, Chief Executive Officer, Controlling Shareholder. The security director read it first. Then his posture changed. The guard stepped away from Noah. Hale did not move. For the first time, the man who had controlled the room had nowhere left to stand. The federal team entered behind Claire and presented a search warrant covering executive email servers, laboratory archives, quality control records, and Hale's office. A digital forensics specialist placed Rachel's flash drive inside a sealed evidence pouch. No one plugged it into a company computer. No one touched it without gloves. Truth needed dignity too. Hale looked at Claire. You set me up. No, she said. You were given a chance to explain your decisions. You have no idea what I protected. I know exactly what you protected. She placed a printed email chain on the table. Your bonus. Your promotion. The product launch. Hale's jaw tightened. That launch was worth hundreds of millions. And Rachel Bennett's job? She violated protocol. And her medical insurance? That was handled by human resources. Noah stepped forward. Red marks remained around his wrists from the guard's grip, though no handcuffs had been used. You signed her termination. Hale looked at him. She circulated unverified findings. She reported a safety signal. She created panic. She asked for a review. 3 short sentences. No raised voice. No threat. Just truth, placed carefully where everyone could see it. Claire handed an investigator a binder prepared by internal compliance. Inside were 3 layers of evidence. Rachel's original test summaries. Hale's instruction to remove all copies before. External review. And production records showing that the company continued using the additive after executives had documented elevated respiratory events in premature animal models. A technician near the testing station covered her mouth. One board member lowered his eyes. For 9 years, people had called Rachel unstable, dishonest, and confused. Now her work filled the table. Claire faced Hale. You believed poverty made Noah powerless. Hale said nothing. You believed illness made Rachel inconvenient. Still nothing. You believed my grief made me inattentive. His expression shifted. That was the truth he had not expected her to say aloud. Claire's voice softened. Dignity does not disappear because powerful people refuse to recognize it. The lead investigator informed Hale that he was not under arrest at that moment, but that he was required to remain available for questioning and prohibited from accessing company systems. 2 agents escorted him toward a conference room. No applause followed. Justice rarely arrives with applause when people understand how much suffering came before it. Noah looked at Claire. So this is your company. Her eyes met his. It bears my name. That isn't what I asked. Claire looked down at Rachel's report. No, she said. Not anymore. Not unless it becomes something different. Behind them, the laboratory remained silent. Not because a billionaire had revealed herself. Because a poor single father and a dead scientist had finally forced power to listen. Effective immediately, we are stopping every shipment. The announcement struck the press room like breaking glass. Reporters looked up from their laptops. Camera lights burned against the polished stage. Behind Claire, the Whitmore Family Nutrition logo stretched across a blue wall designed to project confidence. That morning, shares had opened down 12%. By noon, 3 board members had demanded Claire's resignation. By 1 o'clock, every advisor in the building had told her to say less. Claire stepped closer to the microphone. We are recalling all lots connected to the infant formula line identified in Rachel Bennett's research. A reporter stood. Are you admitting the product caused injuries? No, Claire said. The medical evidence is still being reviewed. I am admitting that legitimate safety concerns were suppressed, and that continued distribution would be irresponsible. Another voice cut through the room. What will this cost shareholders? Claire looked toward Noah, standing near the back with Sophie asleep against his chest. Whatever accountability costs. The room went still. Claire continued. All relevant records have been transferred to federal regulators. The company will enter court-supervised restructuring, sell 2 non-essential divisions, and operate under independent safety oversight. Whispers moved behind the curtain. I am surrendering my annual compensation and transferring $2 billion of personal holdings into an independent foundation supporting infant nutrition, medical screening, and emergency family assistance. A reporter raised her hand. What will the foundation be called? Claire glanced at Noah. The Rachel Bennett Infant Safety Foundation. Noah's breath caught. Claire turned toward him. Mr. Bennett, would you join me? He walked toward the stage. Camera shutters clicked. Claire offered him a folder. This is an appointment as executive director of the foundation. The board is independent. The role carries full authority over family assistance programs and public reporting. Noah opened it. The salary was fair. The governance terms were real. No clause required him to protect Whitmore family nutrition. Still, he closed the folder. I have conditions. A nervous murmur moved through the room. Claire nodded. Say them. No parent should have to prove they've been humiliated before they can feed their child. Agreed. No corporate executive controls the foundation. Agreed. Every safety complaint is investigated, even when the answer is expensive. Claire's eyes softened. Especially then. Noah looked toward the cameras. This is not about saving a company, he said. It is about making sure no father has to choose between medicine and formula while someone in an office decides the risk is small enough to ignore. Claire lowered her gaze. For years, she had believed redemption meant repairing damage without naming who caused it. Noah had taught her something harder. Grace without responsibility is only comfort. After the press conference, Claire found him in a quiet family room beside Sophie's stroller. You should go home, Noah said. So should you. I don't have a working truck. For the first time that day, Claire smiled. I noticed. Sophie woke and began to fuss. Claire hesitated, then held out her arms. Noah studied her for a moment before placing the baby gently against her shoulder. Claire began humming Caroline's lullaby. Sophie settled. Noah watched them beneath the soft hallway lights. Come have dinner, he said. Nothing fancy. Claire looked down at the child in her arms, letting Sophie's tiny fingers wrap around hers. Nothing fancy sounds good. An hour later, the billionaire who had just surrendered half her fortune sat at Noah's scratched kitchen table, eating takeout soup and learning how to test the temperature of a baby's bottle. The company had lost billions that day, but in that small, quiet apartment, something else had begun. Not romance. Not yet. Trust. She didn't save me. Noah's words carried across the crowded community center and settled over the room. A reporter lowered her microphone. Beside him, Claire stood holding Sophie beneath a white banner that read, The Rachel Bennett Family Center. 1 year had passed since the recall. Whitmore Family Nutrition had survived only after court-supervised restructuring, the sale of 2 major divisions, and the installation of independent safety monitors. Victor Hale had pleaded guilty to obstruction and falsifying regulatory records. Other cases were still moving toward trial. The truth had not arrived quickly. Real justice rarely does. It arrived through hearings, depositions, medical reviews, and long nights when Noah and Claire wondered whether doing the right thing would ever feel different from losing everything. The Rachel Bennett Infant Safety Foundation now operated 5 family centers. Parents could receive formula, diapers, medicine, medical referrals, and emergency rent assistance without surrendering their dignity. No parent was asked to prove humiliation before receiving help. That had been Noah's first condition. It remained the foundation's first rule. Claire had changed too. She no longer lived only between boardrooms and empty penthouse windows. She spent most mornings at Noah's kitchen table reviewing safety reports while Sophie threw cereal onto the floor. She learned how to warm a bottle without testing it 5 times. She learned which stuffed rabbit Sophie needed at bedtime. She learned that Noah took his coffee black when he was tired and with too much cream when he was afraid. Their relationship had grown slowly, not through galas or headlines, through hospital follow-ups, foundation meetings, late dinners, snowy mornings when Claire arrived before work simply because Sophie had begun expecting her. Noah was no longer poor, but he still wore the same faded work jacket. Claire was no longer lonely, but she understood that belonging could not be purchased or announced. It had to be earned in small moments. A temperature check twice in the middle of the night. A hand held during a difficult phone call. A child trusting someone enough to fall asleep against her chest. The reporter tried again. Mr. Bennett, people say Ms. Whitmore changed your life. Would you call her your family's miracle? Noah looked at Claire, then at the families waiting behind them. She didn't save me, he repeated. The room waited. She stood beside me while we saved what mattered. A quiet breath moved through the crowd. Noah turned toward Rachel's portrait near the entrance. She told the truth when powerful people wanted silence. Then he looked at Claire. And Claire listened when listening cost her almost everything. Claire lowered her gaze. She still woke some nights carrying guilt. Noah never told her to forget. He taught her that redemption was not forgetting. It was choosing differently every day. Sophie shifted in Claire's arms. Now 20 months old, she wrapped one hand around Claire's necklace. At home, she had begun saying something that sounded like Mama C, but never clearly enough for Claire to trust it. Noah smiled. Hey, troublemaker. Sophie looked at him. Then she touched Claire's cheek. Mama Claire. The words were small, soft, certain. Claire stopped breathing. Noah's eyes filled, but he said nothing. Neither did the reporters. For a few sacred seconds, the room fell silent. Not from shock, from recognition. A struggling father had once returned a can of formula because he believed he had no other choice. A lonely billionaire had stepped forward believing she was buying food. But the miracle had never been in the formula. It was in the dignity Noah refused to surrender. It was in the truth Rachel refused to bury. And it was in two wounded people choosing, day after day, to build a family worthy of a second chance.